6 months ago, I was Brennan Davis, successful construction manager with a beautiful home-loving wife and teenage daughter. Now I sit abandoned in a roadside diner watching through the window as my family drives away with my wallet and phone. We do not need a cripple holding us back, were the last words my wife Amanda spoke before she and my 16-year-old daughter Zoe left me stranded 50 miles from home. The wheelchair I have been confined to since my accident might as well have been a concrete block in their eyes. Only a kind waitress noticed my distress and offered me her phone. They had no idea who I would call or how those 78 desperate calls from them would sound days later. Before I dive into how my life completely fell apart and somehow rebuilt itself, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever felt the sting of betrayal from someone you thought would always stand by you. I first met Amanda during our sophomore year of college. I was studying construction management while working part-time for a local builder to pay tuition. She was pursuing a marketing degree, brilliant and ambitious, with a smile that could light up any room. We dated for 3 years before getting married right after graduation. Even then I knew I was punching above my weight, but Amanda insisted we were perfect together. Our early married years were a beautiful struggle. We lived in a tiny apartment, saved every penny, and dreamed about our future. When Amanda got pregnant with Zoe, I took on extra jobs to ensure we could afford a better place. By the time our daughter was born, I had secured a position with Reynolds Development, one of the largest construction firms in the state. Zoe was the light of my life from the moment she arrived. I still remember her tiny fingers wrapping around mine in the hospital, her first steps across our apartment floor, and how she would squeal with delight when I came home from work. "Daddy, Daddy," up high she would demand, and I would swing her onto my shoulders where she felt like she could touch the stars. As my career advanced, so did our lifestyle. By the time Zoe turned 8, we had moved into a 4-bedroom house in an upscale neighborhood. Amanda drove a luxury SUV, and we enrolled Zoe in private school. I worked 60-hour weeks but considered it worthwhile to provide my family with comfort and opportunities I never had growing up. Somewhere along the way, I noticed subtle changes in my wife. The woman who once loved camping trips and pizza nights on our apartment floor became increasingly focused on appearances. Our home had to feature the latest design trends. Our vacations needed to be Instagram-worthy. Even Zoe started receiving subtle messages about the importance of status, with Amanda pushing her toward friends from wealthy families. "We need to maintain certain standards." Brennan became Amanda's frequent refrain whenever I questioned a lavish purchase or social commitment. This is the world we live in now. Zoe, once my shadow who loved fishing trips and building projects in the garage, gradually transformed into a mirror image of her mother. By 16, she was obsessed with designer clothes, constantly on social media, and increasingly embarrassed by my work boots and calloused hands. The little girl who once proudly told her kindergarten class that her daddy built buildings was now the teenager who would wait in the car if I needed to pick her up in my work clothes. I told myself this was normal teenage behavior, that our bond would survive this phase, that working harder to give them everything they wanted would eventually bring back the appreciation and connection we once shared. On March 14th, I was overseeing a renovation project for a downtown office building. We were behind schedule due to weather delays, and the client was pressuring us to make up time. One of my team members reported concerns about a scaffold set up on the 12th floor, but the safety inspector could not come until the following day. "I will check it myself." I decided, not wanting to lose another day of work. I have enough experience to know if it is safe. This decision would forever divide my life into before and after. I remember the creak of metal, a sudden lurch, and then the terrifying sensation of falling. The world slowed down as the scaffold collapsed beneath me. There was a moment of weightlessness before gravity pulled me down through a partially completed section of flooring. The pain when I landed 2 floors below was explosive and all-consuming. I woke up in the hospital 3 days later. The doctors explained my injuries with clinical detachment, multiple fractures in both legs, a shattered right hip, damaged spinal discs. 2 emergency surgeries had saved my life, and my ability to eventually walk, but the prognosis was guarded at best. "You may need to use a wheelchair for at least 6 months, the surgeon explained. "After that, intense physical therapy might get you to walk with assistance." But I need to be honest, Mr. Davis. You might never regain full mobility. Amanda sat beside my hospital bed, holding my hand and assuring me everything would be okay. Zoe hugged me carefully around my neck and called me her superhero. In those early days, their support seemed unwavering and genuine. I believed we would face this challenge together as a family. How quickly that illusion shattered. The first signs appeared during my third week in the hospital. Amanda began missing daily visits, citing work commitments or issues with Zoe's school. When present, she seemed distracted and irritated, particularly when nurses demonstrated the care routines she would need to help with at home. "I did not sign up to be a nurse," she muttered once, thinking I was asleep. By the time I was discharged, something fundamental had changed. The warmth in Amanda's eyes had been replaced by a calculating coolness. She had rearranged our home, moving my things to a makeshift bedroom on the first floor that had previously been our guest room. The master bedroom, she explained, had too many stairs for me to navigate safely. It was practical, but delivered without compassion. The life I had known was over, and a new, harsher reality had begun. 6 months after the accident, I remained primarily wheelchair-bound despite grueling physical therapy sessions 3 times weekly. I could stand for short periods with a walker, but the progress was agonizingly slow. Each small victory I celebrated was met with indifference from Amanda and Zoe. Our financial situation had deteriorated despite decent insurance coverage. The policy covered 80% of medical expenses, but 20% of astronomical bills still amounted to significant debt. I received disability payments, but they were a fraction of my former salary. For the first time in our marriage, luxury purchases were curtailed, and Amanda was furious about it. "This is not the life I worked for," she complained constantly. "We built something beautiful, and now it is all falling apart." The physical pain of my recovery paled in comparison to the emotional agony of watching my family's resentment grow. Amanda made no effort to hide her disgust when helping with my basic needs. She would turn her face away, hold her breath, or wear an expression of revulsion that cut deeper than any surgical incision. Zoe stopped bringing friends to our house entirely. "It is depressing here now," she told her mother, not realizing I could overhear from my room. "Everyone feels sorry for me, because my dad is. You know." The word they both began using when they thought I could not hear was cripple. It fell from their lips with casual cruelty, reducing the man who had provided for them and loved them unconditionally to a burden, an embarrassment, a problem to be solved. One evening I wheeled myself to the kitchen for water and froze when I heard Amanda on the phone with her sister. "I never expected to be stuck with a cripple at 40, she said, her voice low but clear. "This is not the life I signed up for. Zoe graduates in 2 years, and then what I will be caring for him forever while my youth slips away." I retreated silently, the water forgotten, a new pain blossoming that no medication could touch. The next morning, Amanda announced we needed a family vacation. "We have all been under too much stress," she declared with sudden cheerfulness. A road trip might help us reconnect. Hope flickered within me. Perhaps she had recognized the divide growing between us and wanted to heal it. I agreed eagerly, desperate to grasp any chance to rebuild what we were losing. We planned a weekend trip to a lakeside resort about 3 hours away that advertised accessibility features. Amanda insisted on driving, saying I would be more comfortable in the passenger seat of our SUV with Zoe in the back. We packed minimally, and I noticed Amanda seemed unusually attentive that morning, helping me dress and get into the vehicle with a gentleness I had not experienced in months. The first 2 hours of the drive were almost pleasant. We listened to music, reminisced about previous vacations, and even laughed together for the first time in months. When Amanda suggested we stop for lunch at a roadside diner, I readily agreed. The diner was vintage, Americana, all chrome and red vinyl, situated on a quiet stretch of highway with nothing else around for miles. Amanda expertly helped me into my wheelchair and maneuvered me inside. Zoe seemed unusually solicitous, asking repeatedly what I wanted to eat and if I was comfortable. "I need to get something from the car," Amanda said after we ordered. "Zoe, come help me." They were gone for nearly 15 minutes. When they returned, something had shifted. The artificial warmth was gone, replaced by a cold determination that sent a chill through me. "Brennan, we need to talk," Amanda said, sliding into the booth across from me. "This is not working anymore." "What is not working?" I asked, though a terrible premonition was already forming. "This," she gestured between us. "Our marriage. This life. None of it." Zoe stared at her plate, avoiding my eyes. "I know things have been difficult," I began, "but we can work through this. After 15 years together, 15 years of my life I cannot get back," Amanda interrupted. "I am done pretending. We do not need a cripple holding us back." The word landed like a physical blow. Hearing it directed at me openly, not whispered behind my back, made it even more devastating. "What are you saying?" I asked, though I already knew. "We are leaving. Today. Now." She reached into her purse and removed my wallet, which she had apparently taken from my jacket during her trip to the car. "We need this more than you do." Zoe finally looked up, and what I saw in her eyes was worse than hatred. It was complete indifference, as if I were a stranger, rather than the father who had once been her hero. "My phone," I said, patting my empty pocket where it should have been. "Also with us," Amanda confirmed. "You have your credit cards in your wallet, right? You can figure something out. You were always good at solving problems." They stood in unison, a choreographed exit they must have rehearsed. "You cannot just leave me here," I said, my voice rising with panic. "I cannot even drive." "That sounds like a you problem, not a me problem," Amanda replied coolly. "This was always the plan for today, Brennan. The trip was just to get you far enough from home that you could not easily get back." As they walked toward the door, Zoe glanced back once. For a moment I thought I saw hesitation, but then she turned away. "Why?" I called after them, my voice breaking. "After everything we have built together," Amanda paused at the door. "Because I deserve better than half a husband. Because Zoe deserves better than half a father." They walked to our car, got in, and drove away. Through the window I saw them laughing as they pulled onto the highway, as if abandoning me was not just necessary but amusing. I sat frozen, surrounded by strangers 50 miles from home, without money, phone, or any way to help myself. In that moment I felt smaller and more helpless than at any point since my accident. The bustle of the lunch crowd continued around me, oblivious to the fact that my entire world had just collapsed. I sat paralyzed, watching the road long after our car had disappeared from sight. Part of me believed they would return, that this cruel joke would reach its limit, and they would come back, apologizing for taking it too far. They did not return. "More coffee, sir." A waitress appeared beside me, coffee pot in hand. When I did not respond, she leaned down slightly. "Sir, are you okay?" I looked up to meet concerned brown eyes. Her name tag read Rose. She appeared to be in her 50s, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. My voice failed. How could I possibly explain what had just happened? The shame of being abandoned was almost as overwhelming as the abandonment itself. Rose set down her coffee pot and slid into the booth opposite me, where Amanda had delivered her verdict just minutes earlier. "Those people you were with," she said quietly. "They left without you." It was not a question, but a statement. She had noticed. "My wife and daughter," I managed to say. "They took my wallet and phone. They just left me here." Rose's expression shifted from concern to disbelief to anger in rapid succession. "They left you here, in a wheelchair." With nothing, I nodded, the humiliation burning in my throat. "Wait right here," she said, standing abruptly. Rose conferred with an older man behind the counter, gesturing in my direction several times. He looked over, frowned deeply, then nodded. She returned to my table with a fresh mug of coffee. "That was Joe, the owner," she explained. "Your meal is on the house, and you can use our phone to call someone." The kindness from this stranger, after the cruelty from my family, broke something loose inside me. I explained my situation in halting sentences: the accident, the months of recovery, the growing resentment, and finally today's betrayal. "I do not even know who to call," I admitted. "Most of our friends are really her friends. My parents passed years ago, and my brother lives across the country." Rose sat patiently refilling my coffee as I talked. When I finished, She simply asked, "Is there anyone who might help? Anyone at all?" A name surfaced in my mind, Marcus Williams. Before my accident, my company had completed a major renovation on his law firm's building. Marcus was a high-powered attorney who had been impressed with my work and management style. We had developed a friendly professional relationship, occasionally meeting for lunch to discuss potential future projects. He had even sent flowers after my accident with a note offering help if I ever needed it. At the time, I had taken it as a professional courtesy. Now it felt like a lifeline. There might be someone, I told Rose, a lawyer I worked with before my accident. She led me to the diner's office and dialed the number I recited from memory. When Marcus's receptionist answered, I asked for him, directly, surprised when he came on the line immediately. "Brennan Davis," he said warmly. "Good to hear from you. How is your recovery going?" The concern in his voice, so genuine compared to what I had been living with for months, nearly undid me. I explained my situation as succinctly as possible, trying to maintain dignity while admitting I was stranded penniless and unable to transport myself home. There was a brief silence when I finished. "Where exactly are you, Marcus?" asked, his tone now crisp and professional. I handed the phone to Rose, who provided the diner's exact location and directions. "Tell Brennan to stay put," I heard Marcus say. "I am sending someone immediately. They will have cash, a phone, and anything else he needs. They should arrive within the hour." When Rose hung up, she smiled reassuringly. "Your friend is sending help. Now, how about some lunch while you wait?" On the house. For the next hour, Rose kept me company between serving other customers. She brought me a hot meal, refilled my coffee, and treated me with a dignity that had been absent from my life for months. Word of my situation spread quietly among the diner staff and regular customers. A trucker insisted on giving me his new travel blanket for the road. An elderly couple pressed $40 into my hand, despite my protests. Joe, the owner, emerged from the kitchen to assure me I could stay as long as needed. It was a stunning contrast, strangers showing more humanity than the people who had vowed to stand by me through better or worse. True to his word, Marcus's associate arrived precisely 58 minutes after our call. He introduced himself as David, handed me an envelope containing $500 in cash, a prepaid phone, and a business card with Marcus's personal number. "Mr. Williams has arranged a hotel room for you in town," David explained. "I am to take you there now, and he will meet you tomorrow morning to discuss your situation further." I thanked Rose with all the sincerity in my heart, promising to return and repay her kindness. She waved it off with a simple, "Just pay it forward someday." That night, in the hotel room alone with my thoughts, I faced the full magnitude of my situation. My marriage was over. My relationship with my daughter was shattered. My home might no longer be accessible to me. Yet amidst the devastation, I felt something unexpected: relief. The pretense was over. The walking on eggshells, the pretending not to notice their disgust, the desperate attempts to make myself smaller and less burdensome, all of it could end. For the first time since my accident, I allowed myself to feel anger rather than just hurt. They had abandoned me, stolen from me, and laughed about it. Whatever happened next, I would no longer accept being treated as less than human by the people who should have loved me most. With that resolution firmly in mind, I finally fell into the deepest sleep I had experienced in months. Marcus Williams arrived at 9 the next morning, not with the expected junior associate, but personally. He shook my hand firmly and sat down across from me in the hotel restaurant where I had wheeled myself for breakfast. First things first, he began without preamble. "I have taken the liberty of having your house keys changed and security system recoded. If Amanda returns home, she will find herself locked out." I blinked in surprise. "You can do that. When someone abandons their disabled spouse and commits theft in the process, there are certain legal protections that activate immediately." His tone was matter of fact. "I have also frozen your joint accounts and credit cards, filed for an emergency financial order, and begun divorce proceedings, citing abandonment and cruelty." The efficiency was breathtaking. "Why are you doing all this for me?" I asked. Marcus set down his coffee cup. "Two reasons. First, what happened to you is morally reprehensible and legally actionable. Second, I believe in paying back good people who have been wronged. You were honest, hardworking, and fair in all our business dealings. Those qualities matter to me. He laid out a comprehensive plan. His firm would represent me pro bono in the divorce. He had a fully accessible apartment, available immediately, owned by his brother-in-law, where I could stay as long as needed. His personal driver would transport me to medical appointments. Most importantly, he had assembled evidence of Amanda's actions, including statements from Rose and other diner witnesses that would ensure the court viewed my case favorably. Now, Marcus said, checking his watch, "I believe your phone should be ringing right about now." As if on cue, the prepaid phone he had given me began to ring. The number displayed was my home. "Amanda has likely returned home to find herself locked out with her credit cards declined," Marcus explained. "You may answer if you wish, but I advise letting it go to voicemail for now." The phone rang 4 more times in the next hour. Then text messages began arriving, first angry, then increasingly desperate. "Where are you? Why are the locks changed? The credit cards are not working. I need to buy groceries. This is not funny, Brennan. Let me in my house. Please call me back. We need to talk." By evening, Marcus's prediction had fully manifested. Amanda had called 26 times. Zoe had called 9 times separately. Voicemails ranged from threatening to tearful. "This will continue," Marcus advised. "Do not engage yet. Everything they say is being documented for court." Over the next 3 days, Amanda's calls reached a staggering 78 in total. Her messages evolved from demands to pleas, to claims that it had all been a terrible mistake and just a joke that went too far. Zoe's messages were similarly remorseful, claiming her mother had pressured her to participate. I moved into the accessible apartment Marcus had arranged. It was a ground-floor unit with widened doorways, a roll-in shower, and other modifications that made my daily life easier than it had been in my own home. The building even had an on-site gym with adaptive equipment where I could continue my physical therapy. It was there I met Alicia, a physical therapist specializing in spinal and orthopedic injuries. Unlike previous therapists who had been cautiously pessimistic, Alicia was relentlessly optimistic. "Your X-rays show excellent healing," she said during our first session. "The surgeon did good work. With the right therapy and your determination, I believe you could progress far beyond what you have been told." For the first time since my accident, someone looked at me and saw potential rather than limitation. 2 weeks after being abandoned at the diner, I finally agreed to meet Amanda with Marcus present. She arrived at his office looking disheveled. Her designer clothes wrinkled her makeup, imperfect, her expression desperate. The shock on her face, when she realized who my advocate was, proved deeply satisfying. Marcus Williams was one of the most prominent attorneys in the state, known for handling high-profile divorces with a ruthless efficiency that always favored his clients. "You called him?" she whispered, her face draining of color. "The kind waitress let me make one call," I replied simply. The meeting was brief and devastating for Amanda. Marcus presented evidence that she had been planning to leave me for months, including emails to real estate agents, in another state searches for information about divorcing disabled spouses and bank transfers to private accounts. Given the documented abandonment of a disabled spouse, theft of personal property, and premeditated financial deception, our offer is quite generous, Marcus concluded, sliding a document across the table. "Mr. Davis will retain the family home, 70% of marital assets, and his full business interests. Mrs. Davis will receive 30% of assets, minus financial penalties for theft and abandonment." "This is robbery," Amanda gasped. "No," Marcus countered coldly. "Robbery is what you did to your husband at that diner. This is justice." I met with Zoe separately a week later. Unlike her mother, her remorse seemed genuine. Through tears, she explained how her mother had manipulated her, played on her teenage insecurities, and convinced her that leaving me was somehow an act of self-preservation. "I knew it was wrong, Dad," she sobbed. "But Mom kept saying we deserved better, that taking care of you was destroying our lives, that all the other kids felt sorry for me. The pain was still raw, but she was my daughter. What you did was cruel and devastating," I told her honestly. "Rebuilding trust will take time. But I am willing to try if you are." 1 year after the accident that changed everything, I walked with a cane into Zoe's school for a parent-teacher conference. The looks of surprise from teachers who had seen me only in a wheelchair before were priceless. Alicia's aggressive physical therapy approach had yielded results that defied earlier prognoses. The divorce was finalized with terms exactly as Marcus had outlined. Amanda moved to another state, keeping minimal contact even with Zoe. My relationship with my daughter remained complicated, but healing with regular therapy sessions, helping us rebuild what had been broken. I established a foundation to help accident victims with immediate practical needs and long-term support inspired by how a single phone call had changed the trajectory of my recovery. Rose from the diner became one of our first volunteers, continuing to pay forward the kindness that came so naturally to her. Perhaps most unexpectedly, I found connection with Diana, the mother of one of Zoe's classmates. She visited me in the hospital after a school event, bringing homemade soup and conversation free from pity. Our friendship evolved slowly into something deeper, built on mutual respect and genuine acceptance. Looking back now, I realize that being abandoned at that roadside diner was both the lowest point of my life and the catalyst for profound change. It stripped away the illusion of a marriage that had devolved into obligation and revealed the true character of the woman I had pledged my life to. It showed me who would stand by me when everything fell apart and who would help me rebuild. The road to recovery, both physical and emotional, continues. Some days are harder than others. My legs will never be what they once were. But I now recognize my own worth in a way I never did when trying to earn the approval of someone incapable of true love. Have you ever discovered unexpected strength during your darkest moment? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please hit the subscribe button and like this video so others facing betrayal might find hope here too. Consider sharing with someone who needs to be reminded that sometimes losing people who do not truly value you creates space for those who will. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that your worth is never determined by how others treat you, but by the dignity and resilience with which you face life's challenges.